Very good afternoon to you. Warm welcome back to what is not the warmest of Phillip Island Saturdays, but there are a few better places to watch motorcycle racing than this. One day it's already been from an Aussie point of view. In MotoGP and in Moto3, Moto2 qualifying comes up next, where there might be some more Aussie success, with Senna Agius off the back of a podium here last season to potentially go one better here this year in Moto2. Of course, the big job for him this afternoon is trying to secure pole position in front of must be a buoyant Aussie crowd. The events of today so far. With Moto2, the sole Grand Prix class yet to crown its champion, and it's still a long way, I think, from crowning the champion after the events of Indonesia last time out. All of the title contenders, though, are through to qualifying too. But coming up at Q1, some illustrious names, though. During the player task, pole sitter last year here in World Super Sport on his way to the title. Ivan Ortola for the MSI squad. Albert Arenas, of course, is up in the top 8 in the World Championship. Phillip Salac is there on your screens, although we might have some further news on him in just a moment. Alex Estridge for the forward team. Joe Roberts, Danny Holgado, perhaps the biggest name in this Q1 session after he crashed early in practice yesterday. Zonta van den Gorberg, both of the Speed RS Boscoscuros, a team that so often comes to this circuit expecting victory. Both of their riders have to go through qualifying 1 here this afternoon if they're to keep up that team's incredible recent Phillip Island record. So coming up then in this Q1 session, we've got Zonta van den Gorberg, Marcos Ramirez, Jorge Navarro, Harrison Voigt making his return to action in Moto2 as injury replacement for Unai Aradre, and Yuki Kuni for Idemitsu Honda Team Asia. Lewis Sotheby and Neil Morrison with you for Moto2 qualifying. Elliot York is in pit lane, and we'll be speaking to the pole sitter in Parc Ferme. And in a couple of recent Moto2 qualifying sessions, he's been speaking to Danny Holgado, who was on pole position in Barcelona and at Misano. Not an enjoyable first experience of a Moto2 bike at Phillip Island so far for Danny.
Yeah, it hasn't been a great weekend for Danny, who's already won 2 races in his rookie Moto2 season so far. Had a fast off up at Lucky Heights yesterday and missed the majority of the practice session, which left him down and close to the bottom. But thankfully, he was relatively uninjured. A little bit of pain in his right foot. And Holgado will really be kicking the conditions that have greeted us here today at Phillip Island, because we lost all of FP2, really the last chance for a couple of riders to put their race settings together, as we had wet conditions earlier on today. And there is confirmation that Phillip Salac will not be taking part in this qualifying session. Had a bit of a moment when he was flung out of the seat yesterday morning. He didn't actually crash, but he tweaked his right shoulder that he had injured previously this season back in Assen in June. And yeah, really was in some discomfort, some pain yesterday. He said at the end of yesterday it's going to be a real struggle to complete the rest of this weekend. And unfortunately for the Czech rider, so it's proved. Just can't catch a break at the moment.
Yeah, proved himself, sadly, absolutely right, which will just leave Jake Dixon going in alone from the Alpmar VDS team. Let's head down to pit lane for some further news on that. Let's join Elliot.
Yeah, just to update you, gents. I've just been speaking to the team, and Phillip is already on his way to Melbourne. Was going to try and catch a word with him just to try and get the latest, but I've been told that Phillip is already on his way to Melbourne. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see him in Malaysia next week.
Very much, Elliot. We certainly wish Phillip Salac all the best, who, as Neil rightly mentions, has had all sorts of bad luck so far this season. That bad luck continues through this Australian Grand Prix weekend. You can't say the Chelsea Olivietti's in this session due to bad luck, but it certainly has been a bad weekend so far for the Speed RS team. 3 crashes between their 2 riders, the lion's share taken by Celestino Vietti.
Yeah. 4 fast crashes as well. He fell down at Miller Hairpin as well as Siberia yesterday. Also Lopez had a high side coming out of Siberia yesterday morning. Towards the bottom end of the order. It's just typical of Moto2 in 2025, isn't it? That the rider that was so dominant 3 races ago in San Marino took second in qualifying, and then maiden Grand Prix win of the season. He's come here and struggled so badly. Number 13 Piatti there, just on the inside of your pictures. It's not been happy hunting ground for Celli in Australia in the last couple of years. Saying this yesterday morning, Lewis, since he came here in just his second ever Grand Prix in 2018, including that crazy 14-rider fight at the front of the Moto3 race. Since then, he has actually failed to finish every single race he's competed in Ireland. And well, from what we've seen so far, Lewis, that isn't really going to change so much tomorrow.
This finish won't be finishing too high up, it has to be said, at this stage. Still plenty of time for that to turn around, and Luca Boscascoro might be watching some reruns of previous Australian Grand Prix around here for some inspiration ahead of tomorrow. Here's Harrison Voigt, who, as mentioned, did compete in the Australian Grand Prix here last season when he was a Precanos injury substitute. He's on board the 29 Boscascoro for the QJ Moto3 MSI squad, partnering Ivan Ortola this weekend. Ortola also a part of this Q1 session. Voigt was 27th yesterday on a 1:32.226. Ortola missed out, replacing Q2 by just under a tenth of a second. Ortola was 16th at the end of practice yesterday.
Great to see Harrison Voigt getting another chance in the Moto2 World Championship. He actually was a member of this series last year at this particular round as well, when he stepped in as a replacement rider in the Precanos squad, riding a Calac chassis. He rides a Calac chassis in the European Moto2 Championship, so quite a lot of new things to learn. Obviously, there's a really big difference between that and the Boscascoro. He's constantly finding his feet and getting up to speed, but Voigt has made absolutely no secret that he would like to be this Moto2 World Championship level. Here on the back of I think his best European Moto2 result of the season last time out, when he was in 4th. So Voigt starting to show signs of form this season. And if he's anywhere close towards the top 4 in the session, I think that would be a major result for him. And it's not just this weekend. He's going to be taking over.
Ray resting up to prepare himself to fight for the European Moto2 Championship. He's a title contender in that class with a couple of rounds to go. So Ray, who re-aggravated a left wrist injury back in Japan, which certainly wasn't aided by the events of Indonesia either, as Joe Roberts and Danny Ramirez and Holgado, should I say, 24 and 27, go side by side through turn 4. Holgado short on dry laps, it's fair to say. It was a rather mixed FP1 yesterday, which did start in the wet conditions, finished very briefly in the dry yesterday morning. We had a dry practice, which Holgado only did 5 laps in, and a predominantly wet FP2 this morning as well. So every lap gold dust for Holgado in this session.
Yeah, he only did 2 flying laps yesterday afternoon after his big crash up at Lucky Heights. So it's safe to say that he's on the back foot, obviously coming here on a Moto2 machine for the first time, so he definitely has a lot to learn. And we're contrasting fortunes down in the Aspar box in Moto2 so far this weekend. We'll come on to his teammate in Q2 by 10 or 15 minutes time, but we're also looking in very good shape here so far this weekend. Let's see what Holgado can imagine as he comes across the line. He sets the fastest time of 31.3, but that is immediately beaten by Adrian Huertas and Ivan Ortola down into the 30.9s. Decent stuff that from Huertas first time around, but you still feel there's still quite a bit of margin to go.
That is Huertas' best lap of the weekend so far, fastest lap of the weekend so far. He hadn't done a 30 to this point. Fastest lap overall of this Australian Grand Prix weekend has been set by Huertas' teammate, the title chasing and MotoGP bound Diogo Moreira, a 1:30.307, which of course is a Moto2 lap record around this Phillip Island circuit.
Yeah, conditions right now are, I'd say, a good deal better than what we had in practice yesterday, when it was a bit colder and also a lot more windy. So I think it might be in the 29s when we get to Q2, this Q1 session, which is MotoGP times of this circuit about, what, 10-15 years ago?
Yeah, a long time ago. Many MotoGP riders were signed for a 1:29. Of course, they were doing 26s earlier on today in qualifying too, but Holgado's warming to the task here. So we do expect the temperatures to warm up tomorrow here in Phillip Island, expecting air temperatures potentially 8-9 degrees warmer than this when we go racing. Which really remind you, you're just joining us, the Moto2 race, as in all 3 classes, has been pushed back by an hour tomorrow to try and dodge the worst of the windy conditions. So it'll be 1:15 local time. Moto2 will go racing over 23 laps, and 27 is currently going to be right in the heat of the action. He's put in a 1:38.99, which is now second quickest by Alberto Arenas, 1:35.44. We're used to seeing a Grassini bike in Q1 in Moto2. Darren Binder, though, automatically through on this occasion. It's Arenas having to try his luck in Q1.
As part of this high-speed freight train that's following Holgado around, so he has plenty of references up ahead. Still one or two rumours doing the round in this paddock that Arenas could yet remain on the Moto2 grid for 2026. Is that a bird that's just coming out? Was it hit there by Holgado?
A knee slider off Danny Holgado's knee that potentially came off. We'll try and catch a look on his leathers to see if it's gone missing. Can see one on his left knee, on his right knee. It's gone missing. Yeah, it's the right knee slider that's flown off Danny Holgado. We know it's windy. It's not as windy as it was yesterday or as expected to be tomorrow, but something has forced that knee slider to make a bid for freedom.
See there, our camera's picking it up there. And Holgado's right knee. Great spot that, Lewis, as he came through on the curve and started to brake towards turn 4, assuming that they just didn't put it on, stick it on with enough force before this session started. So Holgado will certainly have noticed that distraction.
He was trying to put his right knee down for the Miller hairpin of turn 4 and would have realised that there was not a knee slider gripping him across the racetrack, only his knee itself. So Holgado will be coming up pit lane to have some of his apparel refixed. But Alex Estridge is continuing on his way on the forward machine. Estridge, who had some mechanical problems yesterday in free practice 1, which left him setting no time. He set the 6th fastest time in this Q1 session at the moment at 1:31.1. It's a quarter of a second quicker than he went yesterday.
I'm seeing no real improvement from the two Speed RS teammates, with Tillotson getting 9th in this session. Alonso Lopez down in 10th. We've spoken about Yeti's recent issues at this track, but Alonso Lopez was a race winner here back in 2022 and did so in the most dominant fashion that you could imagine. Long lap penalty, and still emerged from that in the lead in the early laps of the race, as we see Danny Holgado surrounded by Nico Tirol there with the headset. Here is a replay. That is his knee slider just coming unstuck as he put his right leg out there. Knew it was windy here, but I didn't think the wind was heavy enough to actually rip his knee slider off his leathers there. And you can see number 96, or sorry, former number 96.
It's not confuse us, does he, with the 27 on the bike and the 96 on his ankle. A number that he might well reclaim next season in Moto2, with Jake Dixon going across to the World Superbike Championship. He only sits second then, does Holgado. You kind of say he's safe on a 1:38.99. He's only a 10th of a second clear of Ivan Artola, who sits 5th on a 31 flat.
Alex Estridge has set 6th fastest time, as you can see. As we have a bit of a lull here halfway through this Moto2 Q1 session. We're going to see a replay here. This is Estridge coming out off the Miller hairpin. Just getting it so slightly out of shape, but all fairly under control for the number 11. Arenas, Holgado, Roberts and Huertas. But as Lewis said, 3.5 tenths of difference between Arenas and Holgado. I think Holgado, Roberts and Huertas cannot be entirely confident of replacing Q2 just yet. We saw there a seagull in the back of this shot there as the forward racing machine came down towards turn 1. Obviously, Seagull was playing a bit of a starring role in this morning session, Lewis.
Yeah, they'll be keeping a very close eye on Andrew Huertas' whereabouts in this session. That's Paul Espargaro, you can just see. Was KTM test rider and 3 Super Sub this weekend, and very closely associated with Danny Holgado, just giving him some words of encouragement. But yes, unfortunately, Adrian Huertas connected with a seagull earlier on this morning in pre-practice 2. And it's fair to say that the Taltrans Calex won that particular battle.
Yeah. Unfortunate for the seagull, but thankfully no damage to Adrian Huertas. Got that, or potentially in your upper body, that can really hurt. So I remember someone careful telling me a story about Roddy Cracken, Australian superbike rider back in the 90s. He was breaking his upper arm after coming into contact with a seagull here at Phillip Island 1 year. He's maybe the Australian superbike race. So yeah, they are cool things, and certainly things that you want to avoid when you're having it down the Gardner Straight here at well over, or close to, 300 kilometers per hour.
5 minutes remaining then in this Q1 section. But Arenas isn't confident enough on a 1:30.544 to sit in the pits and wait. He's going to go out there and defend his current P1. Neil Runty points out, the team to watch really in this final 4.5 minutes is Speed RS. Here is one of their challengers, Alonso Lopez, 2022 Australian Grand Prix winner. You can really even dream of that kind of result here this weekend. There's so much expected of the Boscoscoros as a collective this weekend. So they've had such a strong recent run here in Phillip Island. Calix haven't won a Australian Grand Prix. It's all the way back in 2016 with Thomas Luthi taking the checkered flag. Because the Boscoscoros' only hopes of keeping that run going are really on the shoulders of Jake Dixon in qualifying 2 and tomorrow's Grand Prix. He'll be out on track in the sole remaining Mark Vidias Boscoscoro a little bit later on. So Gardo leads Celestino Vietti, leads Zonta van den Gorberg, leads Joe Roberts on their way through the turn 10 hairpin. Joe Roberts, who you believe what you read, and we certainly trust our Italian broadcast colleagues at Sky, will have a new crew chief in Moto2 next season.
Yeah, it's signed that he's going to be reunited with Lucio Nicastro, currently with Jake Dixon and in Mark Vidias. He's been in Mark Vidias, I think, for the past 5 seasons. It's as though Nicastro will be going back to work with Joe Roberts in the American racing team next year. As there will be obviously 2 rider changes in VDS for 2026. Canet and Dennis Onge coming across, and it sounds as though Rank from the Iagura fame will be stepping across to work with Canet. So that means Nicastro will be stepping aside to work with Roberts. It's sitting pretty in this session. He's just getting a decent run with Zonta van den Gorberg up ahead as he comes down to the Honda hairpin. This is good stuff from Hogado, you'd have to say. 3/10, and obviously picking up some great advice from Paul Espargaro, who has been in some ways the star of this weekend.
He has, and a twice Moto2 winner around this Phillip Island circuit, won by a mile in 2012. And with the set times you're currently looking at, you can understand why Arenas is out there, not confident that the 30.5 would be enough. We might be about to get that magical 1:29 Moto2 lap around Phillip Island, and it could be about to come from Danny Holgado, and you have to be so impressed with the way he's rebuilt his weekend after the crash at the start of practice, which put him in that Q1 session. The one silver lining, I guess, from having that crash is at least it gave him an extra 15 minutes of running in qualifying 1, because he needs every dry lap he can get. Such a difficult circuit to learn as a rookie in any class of racing, but Holgado is learning and learning quickly. We're expecting him across the line very shortly, as he really gives it plenty on the way out of turn 12. It's not quite a 1:29, but a 1:30.197 is surely enough for Q2.
Yeah, absolutely. Stunning stuff that from Danny Holgado, continuing this brilliant run of form that he's been in, and that's a huge crash for Marcos Ramirez.
The weekend.
That's the second of the weekend. Was that coming out of the final turn there? Sector number 4. It's either coming out of the penultimate turn or the final one, but that is a big old crash for the Andalusian rider. You can see green flags there on the start-finish straight. I think it was coming out of turn number 12.
There are no slow crashes through there. That's 4th gear on a Moto2 bike, 160 kilometers an hour. Ramirez was down in 9th place as we've got further yellow flags out in sector number 4. There's a few Moto2 riders introduce themselves to the long lap penalty loop. Yep, yellow's out in turn 12, which could spell an end to this Moto2 Q1 session, with only a minute to go. Calix is in several pieces. Fortunately, the rider is in one piece. Just saw in the back of the picture. It's a painful landing. The bike absolutely trashed. See, tyre off the rear. Marcos Ramirez looking back, saying, "What happened there?"
Ramirez so fortunate not to be caught up with his bike there. You can see the violence of the bike spinning through the gravel. Thankfully, the rider was well clear of that. And Buchbolt, the team proprietor of American Racing, looks on. It's just been a complete nightmare this weekend, hasn't it, for Marcos Ramirez? Your heart goes out to him. The big crash down in Siberia yesterday morning. That was a real egg beater of a crash. It looks as though, on the positive side for the team, Roberts, his teammate, will get another crack at the whip here. This will be his last flying lap. I think he got held up by traffic on his last flying run through sector number 3. Something really needs to make this work. The final seconds of this session. It's got Rotola, Arenas, Freitas and Lopez up ahead. So Lopez has finally started to stir, but still not to the extent that he needs to get through to Q2.
That's fifth. Celestino Vietti down in 10th place. He's not done anything better than a 1:31.7 in this session, and that is his fastest lap time of the weekend as Huertas checks up in turn 4, keeps himself well out of the way of Joe Roberts, because Roberts has got a Q2 place to fight for here. And outside of him, there is no hope really of Q2 for American Racing, who I guess are contemplating a 50 late night repair job on Marcos Ramirez's 24 bike to get him ready for the Grand Prix tomorrow. But as it stands, Joe Roberts won't be advancing through Q1 either.
Certainly can't accuse Joe Roberts of lacking commitment through the hay shed there. He was right out to the edge of the track on the exit there of turn number 8. Nice and clean down into MG Hairpin. He is certainly in the mix here. Roberts could well nab his final top 4 spot from Adrian Huertas. Just needs to keep it really clean through these final 2 left-handers. This is the turn that claimed his teammate 2 or 3 minutes ago, but Roberts puts it nice and clean. A bit of a shake over the bumps there as they come down onto the Gardner Straight. Roberts comes across the line. It's not enough for a spot in the top 4, so 5th place for the American. I have to say it's been a nightmare session for Ethan Bull's American racing team.
Slightly surprised that the estimation was 5th, given he was only a 10th off through the 3rd sector, but they clearly knew something we didn't. Holgado's super strong through that final sector. Way too strong for Roberts, who lost the best part of half a second. 5th for him, 5th and 9th for the American racing team.
Yeah, and in all that excitement and fear, I guess, of Marcos Ramirez's crash, we didn't mention Danny Holgado. That is a new Moto2 lap record for this Phillip Island circuit. A 10th, more than a 10th faster than the time set by Diogo Moreira yesterday afternoon. And there is confirmation on your screens. Well, you have to really admire this young rider's verve, his ability to bounce back from some difficult moments. Really thought after such a complicated afternoon yesterday and then total lack of dry running this morning that Danny Holgado would be featuring well down the grid, but he's given himself a really good chance of qualifying well since that time. And if he's doing 30.1 in this session, what's the likes of Senna Aegis, Diogo Moreira, Aaron Canet going to be capable of in Q2? We're certainly going to be in the 29s, Lewis.
Sure, you'd have to think so. Ivan Artola on a 30.4. He was the Moto3 pole setter last season, so he's still on course for back-to-back Phillip Island poles. Keeps himself in the mix and ensures that at least one more Boscoscuro will take part in the battle for pole position. 4 of them will be in the pole position shootout. That's on a postcard for what happened to Celestino Vietti this weekend. He is 3rd from the back of the grid, 11 in this Q1 session. It's fair to say that Vietti is a little bit up and down in qualifying terms, but that is by far and away the worst qualifying of Celestino Vietti's 2025.
Yeah, 25th on the grid. Not very good. He had a nightmare weekend in Hungary, didn't he, when he qualified down in 23rd, but 25th is obviously 2 places worse, and yeah, it's, I think it's maybe a bit premature to say just pack up and head to Sepang, but does have that feel of it already at this stage of the weekend.
Went there last year, so I can understand if you'd be a little keen to get straight across there to the Sepang International Circuit. Phillip Island hasn't provided much cheer for Chile so far. As for Huertas, though, 4th in that session. For the quarter in the end, he was clear of Joe Roberts, and he books in place in the battle for pole position, which will feature both of the Aspar rookies, with new all-time lap record holder Danny Holgado quickest, Ivan Artola 2nd, from Adrian Huertas and Alvaro Reynas. They move through to qualifying 2. Joe Roberts with that final sector drifting away 5th, Lopez 6th with Van den Goldberg, Sprint, Ramirez and Navarro. Celestino Vietti down in 11th place, the season's worst qualifying for him, ahead of only Yuki Cooney and Harrison Voigt. What a recovery that was for Danny Holgado on the floor yesterday afternoon. He breaks the lap record this afternoon. He's involved in the battle for pole position in Moto2. Which comes next?
feeling this weekend, especially now the gap is reduced to the top?
It's okay, the feeling, because yesterday he go fast. He's lost in the first position, but he's ready for Q2. And in this morning, it's not good day, the starting, because it's the wet condition, the track. And now I want a little bit lucky for the Q2. But all is possible. Starting the first two row is the goal, and for try tomorrow the best.
What did he find in Indonesia on Sunday to give him a bit of confidence, a bit more speed that he'd been lacking in the last few races? What did he find?
He's changing to Japan and Motegi some parts of the bike for take.
For Moto2 so far this weekend, and as we previously said in Q1, we're fully expecting that lap record to be smashed even further after it was broken in Q1 just there. Just those comments briefly on Roberto Locatelli. He was saying in Japan, still struggling to find his feeling from last year. I mean, they're still struggling to find in round 18 of the year.
Might not be able to find it.
It might just be slightly elusive. But too much changing of parts in Japan. It seemed to go back to some kind of setting that he had been using prior to that in Indonesia. And well, the results really spoke for themselves, coming through from 21st on the grid, eventually finished in third. A brilliant performance from Phillip. And as we mentioned earlier today, confirmation that he'll be working with ex-Hayagura crew chief Norman Rank in Mark VDS next year. They hope to take across his well, some members of his current squad in Banting, because they have such a good relationship. But when they found that wasn't going to be possible, Iran wanted to come for Norman Rank. I was speaking to his best friend David Sanchez earlier, and he said, we like people that speak to us direct. Norman is that kind of person. So.
Certainly is. No danger of that for next season. Well, it has been a bit of an up and down weekend so far for the intact GP squad. Manu Gonzalez on the floor twice, but Senna Aegis has been flying at his home Grand Prix. What are the prospects for both in this Q2 session? Jürgen Ling is now speaking.
Exactly, Jürgen. Let's start with the home hero, Senna. After a tricky, difficult couple of races, he looks really good this weekend. How excited can the Australian fans be about his prospects this weekend?
Yeah, he's fortunately in a really good mood, and he has a good flow. He loves this track, and he loves his people, his home people around him, and so he enjoys a lot. And he's doing a fantastic job till now, and I think he can keep this momentum.
What is it about the Phillip Island circuit that he loves? Obviously, an extra motivation being at home, but is it a track that suits his style? He's already had a podium here, of course, as well.
Yeah, both. He loves the track, and for sure the people around him helps. And also, he's a little MotoGP, so it gives him an extra motivation. It's nice to see how released he is. That's in the previous races, sometimes he was a bit locked, let's say, and this was the problem. That he has the speed, we know, but the mental side is another story. He's a young rider, and he needs a bit time to figure out these things, but I think he's on a good way, and we saw already in Indonesia. He did a good race, but the long lap and all this stuff doesn't show it. Also, the qualifying was not that good, and in the Moto2 he starts not from the front, it's always difficult. But we saw already in Indonesia, he will be back soon.
Disappointment on the other side, of course, after the race in Indonesia. The man who just, from the team perspective, how disappointed were you, and what's the feelings like coming to Phillip Islands? How did the problem that arose come about? Describe it to us and for the fans at home.
Yeah, of course, Indonesia was not really helpful for all of us. It was really disappointing what's happening there, and we never had any advantage with this mistake, let's say, but it is how it is. But now for him and for all the team, for sure, it's a different feeling now, but we have to look forward and we have to think positive. I mean, we're still leading the championship. So here, the previous years he was not super competitive, but we need to take as much as possible points from here, and I think for the other 3 races it's looking better, but of course we can feel it's a bit, it's not the same than before. He's not so free anymore, but I think we have to work together and help each other, and then we can manage it.
Just finally, how is Manu feeling this weekend? I guess the mindset has changed, and is he all okay after the crash earlier on yesterday?
Yeah, it was quite okay, because both crashes we could analyze very well. The first one was the second one he knows, because he said, yeah, I know I was very fast. But it's not a problem at all. The worst for a rider is always if they don't know why they crashed, but both crashes we had, so we know why.
Jürgen, thank you, and good luck for the rest of the weekend with both your riders.
Thank you.
Thanks to Jürgen Ling. It's been a dramatic start to this Q2 session for one of the other championship contenders. Aaron Canet is already on the deck. He's gone down outside our commentary box window, down at Miller hairpin. Canet will not be setting a lap time in this Q2 session, so no sooner had he got himself back into Moto2 championship contention, his chances of taking another serious blow. Diogo Moreira, one of the other title contenders, looking to deal out maximum punishment once again. A 130.224. We now have the same top 2 as we had yesterday.
Yeah, amazing stuff from Moreira and Aegis to be within 1/10 of the new lap record within their first flying laps. Very promising starts to this qualifying session. Both and Moreira is getting it very loose. A couple of moments on his previous lap there where he was out of the seat, and coming around Southern Loop there, it looked quite similar. Oh, and that's a massive moment for Manny Gonzalez coming through turn number 1. He was very, very fortunate to catch that there. We go on board with Manu Gas, who had a massive crash down at the hay shed yesterday at over 120 miles an hour. Nearly had another one here.
Just as he was feeding the power back in there, wasn't he? The brake came round. He's had 2 crashes. He didn't want to have a third in that session. So Gonzalez currently 7th, but only on a 131.8. He will not be starting very high at the grid if he doesn't improve on that. Canet still trying to get his bike up and running. We saw several pieces falling off it. It's not got far to go, actually, to get himself to the pit lane from there. He's just off to our left. Tola down 2, and he's down at the same turn 4, the number 4, down at turn 4.
Yeah, dramatic start to this session then. And Aaron Canet, I mean, you must have your head in your hands if you're Roberto Locatelli, thinking he's done work miracles to get himself back into championship contention. As you can see, Tola was very fortunate not to get caught up with some of the riders up ahead of him just there. And once he's on the grass there, after so much rain overnight, there's not a great deal of adhesion there. And Otola, that looks as though that's his qualifying session over and done with. At least he has put a lap time on the board, albeit one that's 3.5 seconds off Moreira's quickest time so far.
Arbolino onto the front row on a 30.3. He's 3rd. We're watching David Alonso's sector times too, because we know he's very good in that final sector, so he might be able to get himself somewhere near the front row of the grid when he crosses the line shortly. Gonzalez still then without any sort of representative lap time really to his name. Alonso came across the line, did a 30.279, but has had it cancelled due to the yellow flag, so that would have put Alonso on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, and when we were looking at practice yesterday, there were 5 names in this Moto2 field which really stood out in terms of their consistency and their speed. Those were Aegis, Alonso, Moreira, Canet, Jake Dixon as well. Those are the riders that we expect them to be inside the podium fight when race time comes around tomorrow. Pick up here with Moreira coming through the hay shed. He is on another fast lap here. It looks as though this could be another lap record here at Phillip Island. He's got Tony Arbolino up ahead, but the Italian is aware that the Brazilian is behind and should get out of his way as he comes out of MG.
Confirmation really in pit lane that the bike of Canet and the rider are back in pit lane, but how much repair job they can really do on that bike in the time that's remaining getting back out remains to be seen. Anything's better than nothing at this stage though, with no lap time on the board. But Diogo Moreira really did deliver under pressure in Indonesia. He looks set to do the same again here. It's a 1:29.817. He is 4/10 clear, and the magical first sub 90-second lap on a Moto2 bike for the Phillip is set by the title chaser, Diogo Moreira.
Yeah, there is blood in the water, isn't there, for Diogo Moreira? He can see that Manu Gonzalez is struggling here at Phillip Island this weekend. He's not quite at his usual best. What can David Alonso muster as a response as he comes out off the final turn? Alonso goes up onto the provisional second row with the 4th fastest time. So brilliant stuff that from Moreira, and it looked as though he gained a whole heap of time coming through those fast final lefts at the end of the lap.
Put the flag out now. Moreira on pole, Gonzalez 13th, and Aaron Canet is 16th, only because the 2 Red Bull KTM Ira riders are yet to register a lap time. And here begins the frantic repair job. And Aaron Canet has to sit there with the sweat pouring down his face. He's clearly ran it back to the pits from there because he is absolutely out of breath. This is what it looked like from on board the 44.
Been shifting down the gears down into Miller hairpin there. Though he's a little bit wide. Not sure if he was going to make the apex just there, but that is such a costly mistake for Canet. It looks as though the seat unit at the back of the bike is completely destroyed there. You're seeing they're having to replace the bodywork there. Roberto Locatelli in the shades there, looking on as his mechanics are at work. They've got 6 minutes to work miracles, frankly. You get Canet back out there with enough time to set a fast lap.
Not really 4 minutes to get him out to do an out lap and get round to the finish line before the checkered flag comes out. Oman, 8th and 21st on the grid to 3rd in Indonesia, but he doesn't want to be doing that again this weekend with a potential reprieve in his World Championship challenge. It looked like it was on fumes really, even with that recovery in Indonesia, but was brought back into contention by Gonzalez. Disqualification. Diogo Moreira, a little bit of a shrug and a question to his crew chief. Well, 1:29.8 at the moment, Diogo, as you're on pole by 4/10 of a second.
Yeah, is it slightly premature to say he could take his helmet off now and prepare himself for a trip to Park Ferme? Perhaps ever so slightly, because we should see some improvements from Aegis. This rider here, David Alonso, Dick Dixon currently in 8th. There's certainly more to come from the Brit as well. But that is just remarkable stuff from Moreira. 29.8, reminding you that coming into this weekend, the previous best lap record from last year was Aaron Canet's 30.8. We're already 1 full second clear of that in this session. Remarkable stuff from Moreira. I was saying yesterday, if he is fastest on a Friday, the best better watch out, because, or the best better watch out, because he is a rider that always goes into the weekend and just gets stronger as the days progress.
Manu Gonzalez 7 poles this season. Diogo Moreira currently on course for pole number 6 in 2025. And he's not a rider that never really shows that feeling pressure, but there is some enormous pressure on the shoulders of Manu Gonzalez right now in the 5 minutes that remain. A very different kind of pressure on his teammates' shoulders. Senna Aegis, of course, going for pole at home. Well, he's going to have to produce a 29.8 or better to deny Diogo Moreira here this afternoon. And the way this weekend is shaping up, Neil, Gonzalez might be banking quite heavily on a home victory for his teammate Senna Aegis.
Yeah, exactly. If Aegis can take some points off Moreira tomorrow, that would be a massive help in Manu Gonzalez's quest to become world champion this year. You could hear from Jürgen Ling's comments when he was speaking to Elliott a couple of minutes ago. He sounded very confident, did he? Gonzalez has never had brilliant results here in Moto2. He qualified 6th, finished 6th in last year's race. And after that scary crash at the start of yesterday, I mean, his weekend started off the best possible way. There you go. There is a reminder of the championship situation. Just 9 points he has in hand over Diogo Moreira. Aaron Canet 33 back. And with Moreira in such swashbuckling form as it stands, it's looking very, very daunting for Manu Gonzalez here in Australia.
3 minutes, 42 seconds, surely. Only a minute to go before Aaron Canet can get back out for a lap. But how's it looking, Elliot?
Well, touch and go, really. They've had to replace the front fairing, the front forks. The throttle axle assembly, the rear tail unit, and both side fairings as well. They're just putting on the front fairing now. Yeah, race against time down at Pantic. Both side fairings still on. Aaron Cadet's ready to go out of the course. They're just putting the fairings on now, so a race against time, but they just might make it. Let's see.
Really touch and go for Aaron Cadet. Bit of a furrowed brow and some temper straight for Manu Gonzalez. He's not too happy. He's unhappy, I think, with Mario Anchi on his left-hand side. There's Anchi, there's Arenas all on his left-hand side. And the pressure potentially is starting to show for Manu Gonzalez.
Yeah, it's not too often that we see him gesticulating to other riders just like this. You can see he's a little frustrated with Mario Anchi there coming through the southern loop. Just, a little bit slower, and that is wrecked his current flying lap.
Yeah, Anchi's on an out lap, but you can understand why Gonzalez is particularly unhappy. This was Arenas, so it's on you. If you're on an out lap, you've got to stay out of the way of riders who are coming through on a timed lap, and Gonzalez has got really no safety net now. Incident involving Gonzalez and Anchi is now under investigation. Anchi, who's having his best weekend since the shoulder surgery which interrupted his campaign, might find himself in a bit of hot water for that.
We see one of the turnarounds of the season from Danny Holgado here, from basically missing the majority of practice yesterday to in the running here for a spot on the front row. I thought he was going to be challenging Diogo Moreira for pole position, but it looks as though Moreira has got sector 3 all crossed up for himself. You can see Holgado here though is in the mix, could well be place on the front row, potentially second best here for him.
Canet is leaving pit lane as we speak. He might just get one lap in at the end of this session. Boy, does he need it. He's starting 18th as we stand in the moment. Holgado up onto the front row of the grid, takes second place, so 1:30, 1:52, even quicker than he went in qualifying 1.
We're seeing a whole host of red sectors on our timing screens, including Manu Gonzalez, who's fastest through the first split. Senna Agius is fastest through the first split. Diogo Moreira is fastest through the first split, as well as is Darren Binder. And I think we could also say Ayumu Sasaki. So this is potentially going to change with just 1 minute to go.
So much shot for grabs here. Gonzalez is looking to try and pull it out of the fight here. Sasaki goes into second place on a 1:31.28. The first front row of his Moto2 career potentially on the cards for Ayumu Sasaki. Still though, no one can get within 0.3 of a second of Diogo Moreira, who's demonstrated his championship credentials this afternoon. Can Manu Gonzalez do the same?
Yeah, Senna Agius is right in the hunt though. You can see he's lost a look. Bit of time in sector number 3, but Agius is very strong in sector number 4. There's a yellow flag out. Someone's maybe crashed on at the MG hairpin. Not sure exactly who it is. It looks as though it's Moreira that's had a crash according to that map, or maybe not. In fact, I think the number 10 was moving there, but coming across the line, Agius jumps up into second position and just missed out.
100th of a second. Gonzalez does go onto the front row of the grid. Gonzalez takes third on a 29.8. Diogo Moreira might well have got through a yellow flag zone, even if he didn't cause it. He's got a slipstream now from Danny Munoz. Moreira looking to end all arguments here as he goes across the line. A 1:29.684. Are there any further questions?
Wow, incredible stuff from Diogo Moreira. Will that lap time stand, or did he catch the yellow flags? Darn it, turned on number 10. Not too sure. Yes, it has been cancelled. So there is just 11 thousandths of a second between Moreira and Agius as it stands.
But Moreira, Agius, Gonzalez, what a tantalising front row. We're keeping a close eye on Holgado, though, who's currently sitting 7th. In the final sector, Canet goes into 8th place. session rescued for the 44.
Wow, he never makes it easy for himself, does he, Aaron Kinnett? But goodness me, what a rescue job that is. His crew deserve a crate of beers each after some of that heroic work. What a qualifying session that was, Lewis. That was fully dramatic, with lots of things happening for all of the championship contenders, but Diogo Moreira has absolutely obliterated the Moto2 lap record to take another pole position. He is on one hell of a roll. It's his second straight pole position after Indonesia. He is looking very, very good to gain more ground on Manu Gonzalez. You have to say, Lewis, what a brilliant job for Manu Gonzalez to put it in third after such a troubled weekend on the front row. I think that's the highest that he could have hoped for coming into this weekend.
From how that was looking with 3 minutes to go, Manu Gonzalez will take that. Third on the grid for him. He keeps up his incredible qualifying record this season, a 13th front row this season for Manu Gonzalez. But we've completed a clean sweep, haven't we, of Aussies on the front row of the grid. Jack Miller in MotoGP, Joel Kelso in Moto3, and Senna Agius. He's certainly got his chance of challenging for home victory tomorrow.
Yeah, almost lost in the drama of the championship fight. Senna Agius coming within 11 thousandths of a second of a home pole position. If you're sitting in Sydney or Melbourne or Canberra or wherever, make sure you book your flights down. Get to Phillip Island tomorrow. You'll have 3 Aussie heroes to cheer from the front rows in each of the 3 Grand Prix tomorrow. And a brilliant, brilliant result that from Agius, who's built on a really strong Friday with an excellent qualifying performance here.
But Diogo Moreira's incredible momentum continues. Pole position for the second consecutive Grand Prix, his 6th of the season. 9 points the difference between Diogo Moreira and Manu Gonzalez. If they finish where they qualify, Neil, tomorrow, they will be level on points.
Yeah, going into Sepang. Third last race of the season, equal on points. I think we can safely say, Lewis, this championship fight is going right the way to Valencia in November. Just did not know where to look in that section, did you? Whether it was Danny Holgado coming through from Q1 and 5th, Jake Dixon jumping up the order late on in 4th. Fine effort for him. Yuma Sasaki has to be one of his best qualifying results in Moto2. I think it is, in fact, his best with 7th place. Excellent stuff from Ayumu. And then that late lap from Aaron Kinnett. How he managed to hold it all together. We saw him almost hyperventilating when it was in the box, and his mechanics were frantically trying to repair his machine. For him to go out there and put a really clean lap together into 8th, sensational stuff. But what a brilliant qualifying session that was for the Dynavolt Intact GP squad. Agius in 2nd, Manu Gonzalez in 3rd. What does the team think about it? Elliot's with Tom Ludy.
I certainly am, Tom. Great result for the team. Senna 2nd, Manu 3rd, sorry. How's the team feeling? A really important one as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Now it's good to be back, and especially also for Manu today to be in the front row after a difficult day he had yesterday. It's good to be here in the front row.
Good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, they will be launching a 2-pronged attack on Diogo Moreira tomorrow afternoon. Moreira surely starts as favourite, having top practice yesterday and taken pole position. But there are 2 intact GP Calexes who will be taking aim at him tomorrow. Make no mistake about that. Senna Agius won't be racing for Manu Gonzalez. He'll be racing for himself and for Australia. From Jürgen Ling, from Thomas Luthi's points of view, I think they'll take either or tomorrow as long as they beat Diogo Moreira.
Yeah, without question. You can see Jake Dixon, 4th place is not a bad result by any stretch, but the Briton not looking entirely satisfied down there in the Mark VDS box. Imagine Dixon, after what we saw from him yesterday, will be in the podium hunt. It's fair to say he should have 3 absolute crackers here on the island tomorrow. MotoGP, pretty much wide open. Moto3, pretty much wide open, and the same I think could be said about Moto2. There's about 5 riders, or maybe even 6, with Danny Holgado getting himself in the mix here today. They could be up there fighting for the podium.
Including all of our title contenders, certainly the top 3 in the World Championship, with no disrespect intended to Barry Baltus, who's 4th in the points, who starts from 10th. But the 3 heavyweights of this Moto2 season, who've been title contenders throughout, Moreira, Gonzalez and Kinnett, all had their own stories to tell from that qualifying session. Kinnett off the floor, a frantic repair job from Fantic to get him back out in the final 2 minutes. He rewarded them with 8th place on the grid. Manu Gonzalez, who, it's fair to say, was looking desperate halfway through that session when he was down in 13th place. He secures 3rd, but the in-form Brazilian, Diogo Moreira, starts from pole position, his 6th of the season. He's giving his reaction now to us.
Yoga, your sixth pole of the season. Every pole was important, but at this stage of the season, the championship fight, it's all the more important. Talk us through that fantastic lap and how you feeling for tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Really happy. I think we make a very good job this weekend. And yeah, this qualifying was tricky because it was a lot of windy. But yeah, we are happy. We start on the pole position tomorrow, and we'll see tomorrow. It will be a long race, so let's see.
Top job, good luck for tomorrow. See you.
Yeah, he doesn't really show the pressure too much, does he? Diogo Moreira, he sees the World Championship lead for the first time in Moto2 tomorrow. Moreira on the number 10 by 11 thousandths of a second in the end.
Have you caught your breath? I think that has to be one of the best Moto2 qualifying sessions of the year. So much drama and so much on the line as well. Diogo Moreira really did deliver. 29.8, a full second faster than the lap record, the previous lap record coming in to this weekend. Small times tumbled across all three categories. And with Aegis and Gonzalez sat next to him on the grid, it is set up for a tantalizing race tomorrow.
Make sure you're with us if you're just joining us and haven't seen the slight modification to the schedule. It's about an hour on to every Grand Prix start time tomorrow if you haven't been updating your social media. So midday for Moto3 tomorrow, 1:15 for Moto2, and 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon for the Australian Grand Prix over 27 laps in MotoGP. Of course, the sprint to whet the appetite for you, which comes up in half an hour's time. We'll be building up to that very, very shortly. It's so difficult, isn't it, to really call what's going to happen amongst our 2 rows tomorrow. 3 rows, really, you have to say, with Aaron Canet qualifying in 8th place. I hope you could bring you some standings very shortly. In fact, right on cue, here they come. Diogo Moreira on pole position then for the 6th time this season. Despite the yellow flag taking his best lap away, his second was plenty good enough. Senna Aegis second for his home Grand Prix, ahead of Manu Gonzalez, Jake Dixon, Danny Holgado and David Alonso, heavyweight second row. Sasaki career best 7th from Canet, who rescued 8th after his early crash. Darren Binder takes 9th place on the grid, his best qualifying since Argentina, with Barry Baltas 10th. Arenas, Arbolino, Huertas, Guevara and Bayer next up. Angie, who's under investigation for blocking Gonzalez, 16th ahead of David Munoz and Ivan Ortola. Joe Roberts eliminated in Q1, 19th for him, ahead of Alonso Lopez. Zonta Negorba managed to screech. Marcus Ramirez, who had a big crash in Q1, 23rd, with Navarro, Vietti, Cooney and Voigt behind him on the grid of 27 for tomorrow, with Phillip having withdrawn due to injury. Well, I hope you have caught your breath after that incredible Moto2 qualifying session, topped by Diogo Moreira. But you haven't got long to get your breath back. 13 laps of MotoGP action coming up. Stick around for the Tissot sprint.
Spot for surf seekers and wildlife watchers. Phillip Island lies 90 minutes drive south of Melbourne onto the breathtaking cliffs overlooking the Bass Strait. With high-speed sections named after Aussie icons, Homero Jack Miller has already sent Phillip Island fans. 12 corners, 5 of them right, 7 of them left. Real tough mission this. Michelin and Pirelli, our tyre suppliers across all 3 World Championship categories. Sector 1 includes the stairway braking zone into the Dillon corner, through Stoner corner, halfway through that second split. The wonderful section of 7, 8 and 9 as you attack through the Lukey Heights. Still braking zone into turn 10, one of 2 first gear corners around this Phillip Island track. 250 km an hour they nudge down the Gardner Straight. 1, 2, 4 and 10 are your overtaking hot spots around this Phillip Island circuit. This was 12 months ago. I want to move this for us from Marc Marquez on the inside of Jorge Martin into the Miller corner. So just 7 days after he was crowned 2025 MotoGP World Champion was the Mandalika Grand Prix. Marquez's farewell to 2025. The results of this first lap contact with Marco Bezzecchi on the factory Aprilia left Mark with a fractured right shoulder blade. It leaves Marco Bezzecchi from the front row of the grid here in Phillip Island with a double long lap in tomorrow's Australian Grand Prix. The Sermon Aldeguer having worked his way through on the stubborn Pedro Acosta in the first 6 or 7 laps over Indonesia. A nightmare day for the factory Ducati team with Marquez injured, Pecco Bagnaia crashing out in last place. But it was Fermin Aldeguer over the line to create history, the second youngest rider in MotoGP to win. First rookie we've had on the tops of the podium since Martin at the steering round in Austria 2021, 4 years ago. Now join us live for our build-up for coverage of the Tissot sprint here in round 19 of 22 in this MotoGP World Championship, which has already gone, of course, in favour of Marc Marquez. It has been already a scintillating sprint Saturday. What a Q2 session we had this morning, where it was drama from the first lap to the last lap. Out of all of that chaos in the 15-minute Q2 session, on what are glorious blue skies, it was Fabio Quartararo, the flying Frenchman, that led the way with a record-breaking lap of 1:26.465. First time a Yamaha's taken pole position here in Phillip Island since Maverick Vinales in 2019. Joined on the front row by Marco Bezzecchi, who was fastest on Friday for the third Grand Prix in a row. And what about this for a story? Miller coming through Q1, the home crowd hero who started this Australian Grand Prix weekend fastest yesterday on Friday morning. Second to Aldeguer he was in Q1. And Jack Miller on an unforgettable Saturday so far for Yamaha. First time two Yamahas start together on a front row since Assen, the Dutch TT, back in 2021. On that occasion, it was Fabio Quartararo and Maverick Vinales. Vinales, one of 3 high-profile stars, sadly missing from this weekend's Australian Grand Prix. The 3 of them will also be missing from next weekend's action in Sepang. Marc Marquez, of course, Jorge Martin and Maverick Vinales sidelined through injury. Matt Burton-Lewis sort of be in the commentary box. Jack Appleyard down in pit lane on a sprint Saturday, which started on the very miserable and grey and wet skies. But thankfully, for this upcoming 13-lap sprint, which will be lights out in about 25 minutes, we are soaking up some serious sunshine. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon here in this part of South Australia. Barely a cloud in the sky as we look out of our commentary box position, perched just on the edge of Miller Corner at turn 4. It's where the Miller army of fans will be gathered for the sprint and the Grand Prix here tomorrow, and they will see Miller on the front row of the grid for the first time in 45 races. Maybe 2023 was the Aussie's last front row start. The absence of big names like Marquez, Martin and Vinales, well, it really has